Hey guys, it's Jocelyn from Fantasia Elegance. One of the most commonly asked questions I get on my jewelry tutorials is how do I avoid leaving nicks and scrapes in the wire I'm working with? Of course, anytime you're using a harder material like stainless steel to work on a softer metal such as silver or copper or brass, you do run a very high risk of leaving some nicks in that metal as you're gripping it with your pliers or whatever. So I just wanted to discuss some tools and tips to help deal with this issue. The first thing you can actually do is put a rubberized coating over your tools. You can buy these ready-made, like these rubberized round nose pliers. I think I got these on Amazon for super cheap. Looks like they are the Beadsmith brand. This can work really well if you don't need to get as much leverage on your wire, because what I found is that it's harder to grip. Maybe I just got a really cheap pair that didn't work very well, and if you shelled out a little bit more money you would be happier with this. But as you can see here, I got a lot of actual nicks and dents in here that make it really hard to grip the wire and work with like I want. And also, you may be able to see here, the tips are bending away from each other instead of meeting together, which again makes it a little bit harder to really get in there and manipulate the wire like you want. One alternative to this that works a little bit better, you can actually buy this Tool Magic or a similar brand to coat your own tools. An advantage of this is that you work with the tools you have, the tools you like, and you can replace it as the rubberized coating gets worn off and damaged. So like I said, I did get this on Amazon, and I went through a phase where I was trying to keep track of how much I spent on my small business, so I wrote down how much I spent on this. I spent $11.50 on this little tub. I don't know how much it is now, but you can just go search for Tool Magic or just rubber jeweler tool coating on Amazon to find a similar product. And this is pretty easy to use. You do need to be in a well-ventilated area because it smells very toxic. But basically it's just this goopy white stuff, and you dip your pliers in there, pull them out, let them dry, and it gets this rubbery coating on them. Here's a pair of round nose pliers that I treated like this. And again, one advantage of this is that as it gets damaged, you can peel it off and replace it. So that might be something you want to look into. Probably the cheapest and easiest option is to actually just use some painter's tape to cover whatever tool you are using. And I do recommend using painter's tape instead of regular masking tape, because this is a little bit thicker paper, it's higher quality, so it will actually cushion your pliers a little bit better. And also the adhesive is made to come off more easily, so when you have to replace it, it won't leave that awful gunky nastiness on your pliers that you then have to try and soak off with rubbing alcohol or something. So very simply, you only need about 1 inch of this, and you can just tear it off, and then you just pull out whatever pliers you want to treat, and you're going to just put it on the working area, and you want to leave a little bit up top so you can bend it over and cover the tip. So what I'm going to do is flatten that down and then just bend over the top just like that. And then you can wrap it around like so, and just coat or cover that working surface with the tape so it has softened up all your sharp little edges and really reduce the likelihood of your leaving nicks in your wire. And if you have a little bit of extra here, it's really simple. You can just trim that off with some scissors. You will need to reapply this quite regularly. Obviously you would do the other side as well. You will need to reapply this fairly regularly because as you're working with wire and gripping it, it will start to wear through the tape and get a little bit gunky. But that's pretty easy. You can just, find the edge and peel it off just like you applied it. And if you find that you do need to remove any adhesive residue, you can just use a little bit of alcohol on a paper towel to take that right off. So that is probably one of my favorite methods for treating the tools you already have very cheaply so that you don't damage the wire you're working with. A few other things you may want to consider is actually inspecting the tools you have and just making sure there aren't any horrible big nicks on the surface of them. For instance, if you used them on something a little bit harder than you should have and it left a big gouge in your tool, you might need to think about just replacing your tools. That would be an extreme example of why you might be having nicks in your wire. You may also want to look at the type of wire you're using. I found that this really cheap wire you can get at almost every jewelry store. It's just kind of generic, permanently colored copper wire. And they don't say what hardness it is. I find that this is kind of halfway between dead soft and half hard. And what you run into with that is that you have to apply more force, gripping it with your tools, to achieve the desired effect because it doesn't bend as easily. So since you're forced to grip it a little harder with your tools, you are more likely to leave scratches. That's why I really prefer working with something like jeweler's grade copper dead soft wire. I buy mine from riogrande.com, not a sponsor yet. If you work for Rio Grande, you can contact me. But that really helps because it has that nice dead soft feel to it, and you won't be running into issues with having to exert tremendous amounts of force just to get the wire to do what you need it to do. If this is all you have access to and all you can afford, that's fine. Just take heart that you might find it becomes a little bit easier as you are able to save up and buy a little bit better wire to work with. Another tip I have is, where possible, remember that you can actually use your fingers as tools in addition to your pliers, and this will help you to not have to grip the wire in as many places. For example, if I were to make a loop out of this wire using my round nose pliers, I could grab the wire at every spot where I want to bend it, like this. So you can see I'm touching the wire in all these different places with my pliers as I go up to make this circle shape in the wire. You know, if you were trying to make a loop or whatever you were trying to do. Whereas you don't actually have to do that. What you could do is just grab it in one spot, use your fingers to bend the wire like so. So you see I've actually achieved the same thing with an actual smoother bend just by gripping on the end. So I've only touched the wire in one place and left one mark, and then shaping with your fingers. Your fingers are a great tool. Don't forget that you can actually use those. So that's another thing you might want to reconsider, how you're actually manipulating the wire to go about making your jewelry pieces. You might be able to get away with touching it with your tools less, which again will leave fewer marks. Which brings me to the final thing. Really, you just gotta practice. You gotta get out there and practice making as many jewelry pieces as possible, because you will find that you just get the feel for the wire you're working with. Over time, you know, you're going to develop a feel for what's the minimum necessary amount of force I have to grip it with to get it to shape how I want it to. And that you'll just find that over time you naturally leave less marks in your wire. And that's probably the more frustrating thing to hear because it means you have to put in the effort. But you can also take heart that if you've just started out and you find that, boy, my wire is just so nicked up and marred up, that a lot of it just comes with practice, and, you know, cut yourself a little slack. Also, a lot of people actually like having the tool marks on their wire because it kind of proves to them that this was handmade instead of made by a machine in some factory. So there is that to consider as well. But if you do want to get rid of those nicks and marks and tool marks in your wire, I hope these tips were helpful for you. If you have any other ideas or strategies that you've developed to avoid leaving tool marks in wires, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below to help everyone else out. And also, if you happen to have found a brand you really like of the rubber coated pliers, please also let me know about that in the comments section below. If we can come to a consensus about a good type, I might update my video to not be quite so harsh against this type of tool. Please also check out my Etsy shop and Facebook page. Sales from there do help me to keep making these free instructional tutorials. And I also have a lot more tutorials on wire wrapping projects where I actually show you how to make different types of earrings, necklaces, bracelets, and rings, all available at my YouTube channel. So you can check that out and like and subscribe to make sure that you don't miss out on any future videos I might make. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope you found this tutorial helpful today, and happy crafting!